Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad, Kuttan.
You're watching Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider the news of the day. Let's begin the show with an update on the novel coronavirus outbreak. Another person has been tested positive in Malaysia, this time a 59-year-old woman from Wuhan who arrived in Malaysia through Johor. So this brings the number of confirmed novel coronavirus cases in Malaysia to 15. Now, in China this morning, the doctor who tried to raise an alarm of the outbreak of infectious diseases in late December has succumbed to the novel coronavirus. So last December, Dr. Li Wenliang sent a message to fellow medics warning of a virus he thought looked like SARS. But he was told by police to stop making false comments and was investigated for spreading rumors. Now his death has sparked an unprecedented level of public anger and grief in China.
Yeah, Melissa, we have over history, this constant need by the authorities to label people as troublemakers, not take seriously even those who are experts in their field. And so this is yet another instance where there was an attempt to suppress information, presumably in the national interest or the security interest. That's always the excuse by those in power, and of course to everybody's detriment.
Right.
Now, I think what we're hearing now is reports that Chinese citizens themselves are demanding more freedom of expression, more freedom of the press, in order that the truth come out, and truth that the unfortunate Dr. Li, helped China understand was in fact coming around the corner.
Definitely. Dr. Li's death, I think, has triggered the conversation about the lack of freedom of speech in China. In fact, I believe some of the trending hashtags on Weibo today were Wuhan government owes Dr. Li an apology. Also, we want freedom of speech. These hashtags were apparently quickly censored in China. And I think it's quite interesting because what this has brought to light has been the fact that there has been this trust deficit over the way the Chinese government has been seen to, according to some allegations, downplay the severity of the outbreak, initially trying to keep it a secret. And had they been more quick to react, would that have saved lives? I think those are the questions.
Yeah, and I think if the Chinese public, as sophisticated as any public around the world, the question really is, where would China go from here, right? Will the lessons be learned? Will the Chinese authorities continue to think of censorship as their main tool in order to control the situation? Or will they, in fact, take to heart the lessons that we learn over history, that, in fact, an open society is more likely to, or best, deals best with crisis than a closed society. It's something that, even the Nobel winning Nobel laureate Amartya Sen talked about, right, in terms of, famines and such, right. Over the years. Open societies deal much better with crisis than closed ones.
All right, very quickly before we move on to other news, I want to point out that in Singapore, the government has just raised its disease outbreak response system condition level from yellow to orange. I believe this means that with immediate effect, the schools will be suspending inter-school and external activities till the end of the March holidays. All right, in other news, let's move on to the brand new pedestrian bridge in KL, which connects Kampung Baru and Jalan Ampang at a spot near KLCC. It's called the Saloma Link Bridge, and it stretches 370 meters. Now, this project cost 31 million ringgit, and it's got more than 4,000 LED lights, so quite a spectacle to behold at night. However, it's caused a bit of a discussion on social media as netizens question the cost and the need for those lights.
There's a wonderful way in which the media and social media work in tandem, right? There's an obsession with numbers, in this case, the cost, the price tag of the bridge, and then the issue of the LED lights. And it's, these are low-hanging fruit when it comes to criticism, right? Oh, it's costly. But what are we benchmarking this against, right? Are we benchmarking, and are those critics benchmarking the cost against the objectives? What were the objectives? Connectivity, creating new vistas, creating something that would delight people.
Making the city more walkable apparently was one of the main objectives of the Saloma Link.
Right, and I am somebody, Melissa, as you know, who doesn't drive and who's a pedestrian. I'm a committed pedestrian. So for me, in fact, connectivity, the creation of walkable spaces through the city increases the livability of Kuala Lumpur. Something that is actually an objective, a stated objective for the city, as advised, not just to make things better for our citizens, but actually to be a global city.
Well, I hear you on the walkability part, the connectivity part, but so there's some of the questions that have come out on social media has been, did it have to be this this design, this this spectacle of lights, especially since most pedestrians will be walking in the daytime? What was the reason for the aesthetics? Was that the cost of the end result of that price tag?
Well, okay, so that's an interesting issue. That's perhaps something that also we want architects to weigh in on and designers. This was undertaken by a well-known design firm. Over aesthetics, we can probably have, 100 different views from 100 different people. But the point is that we see all over the world how iconic architecture sometimes can have a knock-on effect. We know something, it's called the Bilbao effect.
Bilbao effect,
right?
yes.
So a post-industrial kind of city in Spain gets an uplift because of a museum, the Guggenheim, sited itself there and built this iconic building. So in itself, it could generate economic activity and interest and bring life to that part of the city, which has positive effects.
All right.
How do you put a price tag on that?
Definitely hard to put a price tag on that for sure. All right, in other news, we've got two ministers lashing out at recent articles which suggest that Pakatan Harapan is on the verge of collapse. So we have Finance Minister Lim Guan Eng saying that the articles, which were published by Singchu Daily and The Star, were fake news. Now, both articles speculated that Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir Mohamad was unhappy with his current coalition and looking to UMNO and PAS as new partners.
Well, Melisa, again, we have this. I think Malaysia Baru is providing us an opportunity to establish new norms when it comes to what we mean by freedom of the press, because the Pakatan Harapan parties fought to, in fact, create a democratic Malaysia where there would be a free press, a robust press that would keep the government of the day on its toes and keep it transparent in its governance, right? I mean, so I think that in principle, everybody's, at least stated position, is on the same side.
Right.
Everybody's here for free press.
Okay,
the question
that's on the paper. That's that's the party line on paper. But were they right to be upset? Were the ministers right to be upset at the articles that were written that perhaps did not, fall in line with what they were thinking or what they knew as facts, perhaps?
Yeah. So what are facts? Did those articles actually fabricate facts, or did they have interpretations that the ministers did not like? I mean, that's a distinction, right?
Was it an opinion piece, or was it a piece of factual reporting, right?
In fact, an opinion piece. Well, we also know that in Malaysia Baru, the old media systems, the ownership structures, nothing actually has changed. I mean, you might argue that in Malaysia Baru, there's new thinking in some of the newsrooms, but what we do know is of many media organizations who supported the Barisan Nasional, supported Najib Razak and his administration through to thick and thin of the 1MDB fiasco. They're the ones also producing some of these news reports. So, I mean, it's up to the Malaysian reading public, the intelligent Malaysian reading public, to discern for itself.
Well, there was another story that reminded me that had a similar theme. So, Focus Malaysia today received an emailed letter from Khazanah Nasional's lawyers asking it not to publish articles based on the confidential material which could jeopardize commercial dealings involving Malaysia Airlines. So they've been asked to stop writing these articles, and Focus Malaysia has written a series of articles. In fact, I believe they wrote one article that was titled "Why We Wrote the Malaysian Airlines Stories," explaining their position of why they thought this story needed to be covered well.
Right, so okay, this might be yet another test case for Malaysia Baru in terms of what we understand by a free press. What Khazanah does is it says it's here for free press. But it wants the media to also be responsible. The question is, who should the media be responsible to? Should it be, putting itself in the shoes of Khazanah to help them along in their restructuring exercise? Or should it be, as they've been doing, reminding the Malaysian public of the terrible burden the Malaysian taxpayer has paid or borne in keeping Malaysian Airlines afloat all these years, and will continue to have to bear in the billions? Right? So it's a very fine line. I think Khazanah might have an argument or a leg to stand on. The question is, where does Khazanah go with this position? Are they going to try to use legal means to stop Focus Malaysia? Focus Malaysia has not yet responded in terms of its own legal position with regards to this letter. So, well, very interesting test case, Melisa.
Perhaps another test case of media freedom here in Malaysia Baru. All right, after this, we're going to take a closer look at the possibilities of setting up backdoor government. So stay tuned to consider this.